Recently, I got back from an amazing trip to Fripp Island, South Carolina. This area is incredibly different from my hometown and it really allowed me to explore different photography opportunities. So, there were beautiful landscapes there, tons of wildlife, some great macro shots, and just overall a great opportunity for photography. So, one of the main things I focused on there was wildlife photography. There is an immense depth of birds and other species that you can find in this region. So, that's what I'm going to be going over today. I picked some of my favorite images from this location out of about 40 gigabytes worth of photos. So, I kind of narrowed them down. And today I'm going to be showing my favorite images taken in Fripp Island. Before we get into the images, I just want to go ahead and show what my wildlife setup is. This setup is used 100% of the time for my wildlife images. So, for example, maybe for my landscapes, I use two different lenses, but for wildlife, I'm just on a one body, one lens system. So, for the body, I've got the EOS RP, not the best wildlife camera according to the internet, but I think it's great. Maybe not the fastest frame rate, but great autofocus if you know how to use it. Um, Excellence, just performance, great 26 megapixel sensor, decent enough dynamic range, and it serves me well, and it's what took all these images. Now for the lens, this is the Canon 600 millimeter f11. It's another lens that people kind of overlook. People go right to the 800. They think they need that extra focal length, but I think the 600 is truly powerful. It's nice and compact. It's much lighter, much shorter, and it really produces some great images. So this is my wildlife setup 100% of the time. Sometimes I have a battery grip on the bottom of this camera just to get some better battery life and a more of a vertical grip. But most of the time, it's just like this, and it's what captures the images you'll see. So I just wanted to let you guys know that just so I don't have to explain every time which camera and lens I'm using for the individual shots. Let's just go ahead and get into the images. And this is of an egret. So this was the first morning I was there. I got up early for sunrise and I just drove around the island. Fortunately, it was pretty foggy, so it wasn't the greatest for the landscapes I was looking to get. But I was still able to find some interesting subjects like this egret here. This isn't my favorite shot. It's a little bit underexposed, foreground's a little bit messy, but what I do love is the background. These nice palm trees in the background really created some nice interests, as well as just the general colors of the scene. I love the green of the egret along with the yellow beak, and the nice white wispy feathers. Um, it's just a really great starting shot for the trip, and it really got me excited for what kind of wildlife I could capture. Um, so I little did I know that later on in the trip, as you'll see, I would discover a huge flock of egrets. But for this shot, I was really excited. Um, and yeah, this was above a pond, so I couldn't get too close to capture all the details. But as you can see, I still got relatively close. Um, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this is kind of crazy. So imagine there's that egret, the egret that you saw in the shot before. Um, as I was shooting the egret, I was with another person, and he said, "Look, there's an alligator." I didn't believe him. An alligator had actually swam below where the egret was, like almost directly below, and it was like waiting in the water. The shore was like elevated, and I was on the shore of my tripod capturing the egret. He was waiting just in the water right below the shore, maybe for us to fall in so he could eat us. I knew I had to capture it. So I love the shot. I love the composition. It's very minimalistic, but it shows the fear of an alligator. And I was really happy to get that. I love the nice oily texture of the alligator. The focus isn't perfect, and that might be a combination of the high ISO and kind of the um, low light capabilities and just the general focusing system of my camera, which is great but not perfect at all times. But still, I love this shot. It really just captures the terror of an alligator, and the terror I was honestly feeling. So yeah, here is another angle of the alligator. This really shows off the oily texture of his skin, and just kind of shows up a little bit more of the environment around him. He was looking right at me, as you can see. I was just behind my camera, just kind of in fear of the alligator, but also hoping to capture a good shot. I did not do anything stupid. I was safe, but I was really glad to capture an alligator shot right away. Once again, this is still on the first morning of the trip, so I was really excited for what other opportunities the rest of the trip would bring. Okay, so skipping ahead, the rest of the day before, I did a bunch of landscapes, but the next morning there was a beautiful sunrise. So I went out, and there was these plovers on the beach, and I was able to capture just some nice shots with the nice golden light illuminating the plovers. You know, I did selective focus on one or two of the plovers just for allow for nice simplicity. And I got down to eye level with the birds in order to get kind of the best angle, because if you're shooting down at something, it may not look as good as shooting down at the eye level of the birds. Also creates a better depth of field. So I really like how the nice bouquet in the background really kind of creates, kind of combines with the golden hour colors to just create a really nice background, as well as some of the light hitting the birds as they are feeding on the waters. Yeah, I just really love this shot. And here's just a singular one of the plover kind of walking through his environment with that nice golden hour light hitting him. This has been a great series of shots. And fun fact about this, I posted this on my Instagram, which you should check out, by the way. But I posted this on my Instagram a while ago, and these series of images got some of the most likes I've ever gotten. So obviously social media likes it. You know, that doesn't determine the success of a photo, but I also like it too. So it's kind of the perfect balance. I might even be printing this one because I love the quality, I love the colors and composition, and yeah, really happy with the plover shots. Next, we've got I believe this is a night heron, which is a pretty uncommon bird. So I was driving once again on the golf cart for one of my early morning expeditions on the island. I came across this green night heron, perfectly illuminated by sunlight, and I knew I had to capture it. So I came up, I exposed for the bird, allowing me to get just the light on the bird with the background going into shadow on this nice perch. And I just love this shot. I mean, this is just quintessential South Carolina for me, with the nice palm trees in the background and just the nice vibrant colors of the bird. This was quite a small bird, and it was separated by a pond, so I had to do quite a bit of cropping, even on a 600mm lens. But still, I love this shot. I love the red eye of the bird, the nice blue colors with the golden light illuminating it. Just kind of a classic bird shot. I did a nice 1-to-1 crop to kind of emphasize the bird. And it's just one of my favorites for sure. Okay, so a little bit down the road from this, I came across some more birds. So this is an anhinga. What a weird bird. I'm told this is the puffed up version. So when maybe it's doing a mating call or looking for food, it kind of puffs itself up. It's just a weird bird. When I saw this, it was with a flock of other egrets that you'll see in the next frames. When I saw this, it was so weird. It almost looked like a bat from a distance. But sure enough, it was an anhinga. I really like this shot. There were some pretty bright highlights, as you can see, but I was able to get a good enough exposure on the anhinga. I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, so like I said, there was a massive flock of egrets. So there were maybe 30 egrets around this golf course on these trees. So I really just kind of spent like almost an hour out there kind of playing around with different compositions and getting different formations. This one here is a heart-shaped formation, and I really like how it turned out. So I kind of positioned these two birds together, and it created the heart. So I just love how this turned out. Once again, I love the green of these egrets. Unfortunately, on a lot of these egret shots, as you'll notice, I blew out the highlights. That is my fault. I wasn't using auto ISO, so it's not the camera's fault. It was my own fault. I just didn't realize how bright the whites were in comparison to the darks. but I think overall it still works. This one might be a little bit bright, but the rest of them are pretty negligible brightness wise. But sharpness on these photos are pretty darn good. And I just love the scene around it, once again with those nice palm trees. This is probably my favorite egret shot, or at least my second favorite. It's just kind of a singular portrait of the egret. You've got stunning quality, you've got the nice neck of the egret, and once again you got those palms in the background. I just love this shot. It's my phone wallpaper, and I take a lot of images, so if a photo makes my phone wallpaper, it's a pretty big honor. But I love this shot. It could maybe, now that I'm looking at it, could maybe even use a little bit more of a crop, but I still really like it. Once again, the highlights are blown out, but I think it works better for this image. It separates it more distinctly from the background, and just really represents the beauty of these egrets. Here's a female anhinga that was actually on the same tree. As you can see, she has different coloration, more brown, and she's less puffed up. It's just a very strange bird. Not a big fan of this shot as a whole. A little bit dark, and the scene is very chaotic and messy. Because this lens is f11, I don't have many complaints about it, but it is hard to blur out the background and get a nice clean scene, especially where there's a lot of foliage. So this image suffers from that, but it still is a nice documentarian shot. I can add this to my list of seen birds, like my life list. I can add it to that, and it's still a good shot to have in the can. Here's another egret shot. I tried to do some environmental portraits as well, so I kind of showed the nice tree environment that you will see around the egret, as well as the egret himself, just kind of looking over the scene. This guy had quite a red eye. Couldn't quite figure that out. Maybe he had some kind of sickness. I hope he's okay. But still, a really cool shot. Yeah, he's just kind of towering over the scene. Now this, tied with probably that other portrait of the singular egret, is one of my favorite shots. Man, I got these three formations of egrets. One at the top out of focus, the one in the middle being in sharp focus, and the one at the bottom also being out of focus. And I got this perfect environment, like the perfect amounts of greens, just beautiful. I can go on and on about this shot. Man, I just love it. It just continues to stun me to this day that I took it. I cannot explain how much I love this. I'm sorry if I'm gushing about it, but this is really why I do wildlife photography, to capture these nice scenes that not only show the bird, but show the environment around the bird. So you see the bird with his two companions in this beautiful South Carolina woodland scene. So yeah, I love this image. There's some nice side light on the birds. It's pretty subtle, but it's also fairly noticeable to those of you that have good eyes. And I really love the image. All right, so moving on. I believe this is later in the afternoon. I was just walking out on the boardwalk, just doing some recreational birding, nothing serious. It was just in the middle of the day, fairly harsh light. And then I was lucky enough to see a very rare bird, a wood stork, fly over. So wood storks are exactly what it sounds like. They're storks. Originally, I thought it was a roseate spoonbill, but then I realized it wasn't pink. It was kind of hard to tell in the bright sunlight, but it's still a great find. So I got, once again, the 600 f11. I put it on the fast shutter speed custom setting I have. I have a custom setting program so I can quickly jump to birds in flight. And I captured these frames. I'm really happy. The autofocus tracked right onto him. He has a really weird head, as you can see. Just kind of like crusty, I would say. Really cool shots, though. I wasn't the closest in the world, but I'm still fairly happy with it. This is kind of the better shot of the two. It kind of shows the full wingspan of the wood stork and just shows his nice feather coloration, his nice head. And yeah, not perfect focus. I don't know where the focus is, but it's not on the head, but it may be on the body. But still a nice, fairly sharp image. Just a plain background, but that's fine for birds in flight shot. It really shows the majesty of these wood storks. Overall, I love capturing this wood stork in flight, and I hope to do more birds in flight shots. It's something that's been lacking from my wildlife photography portfolio, so I definitely plan to do more. This next one is just kind of a funny shot. It's just a little, I'm not sure what it is. It may be another type of, um, egret, but yeah, just kind of funny shot. It shows the bubbles around him, and his hair is kind of, or feathers are all kind of up in fray. So just kind of a cool little shot, very casual, but I really like the light. This is once again early morning light, and he's just kind of a frayed feathers, and yeah, just kind of a funny little comedic shot. So the next day I did some osprey in flight photography, and man, is it hard. These osprey are going fast. It's hard to find osprey in the air with a 600 millimeter because you're so zoomed in. But you know, I was able to get some. So here's kind of an environmental one with a nice yellow tree with the osprey behind it. And this, you know, I had to use a fast shutter speed to freeze it, but my camera locked on just fine and was able to keep those sharp details. Here is another one. This is an osprey in its native nest. This just kind of shows the environment in which an osprey lives. The island puts up these things in order to maintain the osprey. So yeah, it's just pretty cool. Here's another osprey in flight. He was coming right at me. I was lucky enough to pull out my camera in time and get this shot. Once again, I had to use a really fast shutter speed in order to get it, but I really like how it turned out. And this is my favorite osprey. Now this is cropped quite a bit, so it may not be the highest resolution, but it's still great in my opinion. The osprey flew right beside me, and I was able to capture this. I used a tripod so I can use the get the most stability possible and continue to track him as he moved through the frame. Once again, high shutter speed, and that would also mean a high ISO since this is an f11 lens. And yeah, I really like how it turned out. I did a 16:9 crop to just kind of emphasize everything. And yeah, it's in focus, good colors, not the best exposure, but it's acceptable by my terms. So yeah, it's kind of my first foray into osprey photography. I would say it's pretty successful. Leading in towards the final day here, I ran across another alligator, and this time he was sitting on the side. It was the side of a pond. It was bright daylight, so I got down on the ground level and I was able to capture this shot. Unfortunately, I couldn't get his full mouth in because of a golf post, but I did a 8:10 crop, and I really love this shot. I love the bokeh behind the alligator and those nice bright highlights beaming off of the skin. You know, normally this may not be so desirable, but I think it works. It really shows the reflectiveness and the hard nature of the scales of the alligator. It really makes him look like a dinosaur, which, I mean, he pretty much is. So yeah, I love this shot. I was very safe. I was very far back, and he was very docile. He was just kind of picking up the rays of the sun. Other people were around taking pictures, and yeah, just a really cool thing to see. It was a massive alligator, definitely bigger than the one I saw earlier in the trip. It was kind of a nice way to end the major photography of the trip. Just kind of a final shot here. I believe this is another egret, a different species. You know, it's not the best shot in the world, but I do like it. Shows the nice salt marsh around the egret. It's got a nice exposure on him. And yeah, I like it. I like doing these environmental shots to not only show the bird, but show what he lives in. That being the salt marsh with all the mud and stuff. Overall, I really like it. So I hope you enjoyed my wildlife images from Fripp Island, South Carolina. It was a great trip. I really enjoyed capturing some dynamic wildlife that I've literally never seen before. I've really enjoyed doing wildlife photography, and this was like my first major vacation doing that. So I hope you enjoyed the results. Those were only my favorites. There are a lot more that will be posted on my Instagram, so make sure to follow that. Link is in the description, as well as subscribe to this channel if you enjoy content like this. I'm back into YouTube. I took a long break, but I'm back at it. I'm going to be doing weekly uploads after this video. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. guys.